Hi, hello everybody. Jen Amos here, your creator and co-host for the Filipino American Women Project. And I have to say, welcome to episode 99. It is just crazy to think about how far we've come. It's just crazy to think about how far we've come with the show and where we go from here. So if you have been listening to the show in chronological order, which I tend to find that a lot of you do, kudos first and foremost. I think that's amazing how so many of you, decide to I'm going to listen to it from the very beginning. I tend to find that the highest downloads we get, fun fact, come from the beginning episodes of the Filipino American Women Project all the way back to episode 1 and even the trailer episodes for each season. So I just want to say thank you. We see you. I mean, not directly. We only see the number of downloads. But with that in mind, we see you in regards to downloads, and we appreciate you wanting to take the time to listen to not just the stories that Nani and I share, but the stories of our guests who are so courageous to come on the show and just be open and candid with Nani and I and share their stories. So if this is the first time you have come across episode 99, I have a fun surprise for you. This episode was originally released in March 26, 2021. And fun fact, the time that I'm recording this, the time that you are listening to this right now, I'm recording this on November 6, 2021. That is some time, right? And there's a reason for that. For the first time in the Filipino American Women Project podcast show, we had removed an interview. That's right. We actually had a guest for episode 99, and due to some complications in our relationship, it just made sense to remove this episode in respects to everyone that was involved. Now you're probably wondering, who was it? Who was it? Can I check my previous downloads to see if I downloaded this episode and yada yada? Well, again, in respect to this person that we interviewed, we just decided to remove it altogether. And this particular interview that came out at this time in March was a very interesting time for me. This is already 1 year after the pandemic, after everything had shut down. And yeah, I'm just going to leave it there. I'm still trying to collect my words. It's still really difficult for me to talk about what happened at that time. Because as you know, if you have been following our show for some time now, we often talk about the good side of our community. We talk about how people are being the change they want to see in our community and society as a whole. And so actually, what I'm going to do before I get ahead of myself is invite you all, especially once again, if you are listening to the show in chronological order and you have loved the show and you want to continue to support the show and especially Filipina-led media, and you want to learn more about Nani and I, because I know sometimes we have listeners that want to just hear our story. We often weave it in depending on who we're talking to. But if you want to really, really, really get to know Nani and I and how we operate as co-host in our professional lives, our work together, and even our personal lives offline and our relationship with each other, we have a private podcast show now called Tsismis with Jen and Nani. And you can have access to this exclusive podcast show when you become a member on our new membership site at biasboba.com. So once again, I'm trying to talk to you as if you were listening to this in chronological order. But we came out with biasboba.com after episode 100. It was one of our big, exciting announcements that you're going to have a chance to hear in the upcoming episodes. But we are well into this new private show. I think we're 16 episodes in at the time that I'm doing this audio recording. And it's been a wonderful, wonderful opportunity for us to archive the live workshops we had been able to do with past guests, as well as release exclusive interviews with past guests, seeing what they have been up to since they had been on our show. So it's really a more intimate look into our community, especially here at the Filipino American Women Project. And so if you are interested in that and learning more about how to get access to the show and just, be in community with us, check us out at biasboba.com. And on this site, there are two options. You could either buy us a cup of boba for one time. The way that I describe this is like, tipping the person on stage. Whereas the membership is a monthly commitment to support our show financially. And it's that membership, whether you choose to join us on a monthly basis or annual basis, that will give you access to our private podcast show. So now what I'm going to do for you, just to get an idea of what we talk about on the show, I'm going to share a snippet where Nani and I start to unpack my life in the East Coast. A little background, again, if you're hearing this for the first time, I had lived in San Diego, California for about 20 years from, if I can recall the dates, around 2000 till actually somewhere around 1998, 1999, till about 2018 when I decided to move to the East Coast with my husband for business ventures. And a lot has happened to me. One of the biggest things I had struggled with is building community. And even as I record this, 3 years into being out here, I still struggle with that. And podcasting has helped me in so many ways to be able to build a community despite, feeling so uprooted locally. And part of why this episode 99, was taken down is because this was actually a real life situation where I had attempted to grow some local roots. And unfortunately, I talk more about it. You're like, what is going on? I talk more about it on Tsismis with Jen and Nani. So without further ado, here is a quick clip. It's about a 5-minute clip to give you an idea of what Tsismis with Jen and Nani is about, and also to get a little teaser into what was going on with my life around the time that this episode actually came out. Once again, episode 99 did come out on March 26, 2021. But then it was replaced with this recording now, which has been recorded on November 6, 2021. And like I said, there's still a lot to unpack and talk out loud about what was going on at that time of the year. But this is the start of it. This is the start of me finally having a safe space to reflect on that time. And fortunately, thank goodness for my amazing co-host, Nani, where she just allows me in Tsismis with Jen and Nani to talk so candidly, and she helps me make sense of what happened at that time and why this particular episode 99, had been replaced with this recording right now. So without further ado, here is the audio clip, and please enjoy. Hello, everyone. I'm Jen Amos. And as always, I have my co-host with me, Nani Dominguez. Welcome to Tsismis with Jen and Nani.
Yay. Welcome to our private podcast, you guys. If you're here, that means that you are one of our most appreciated and loved supporters. And yes, we're so glad to be here with you today.
Yeah, so we are being quite candid today. We don't really have an agenda other than to talk about Jen's personal life. But we're thinking about keeping this within an hour and then maybe do some to be continued. But, I just thought this would be important for people who want to learn more about the backstory of the Filipino American Women Project, as well as even my own personal journey. As much as I am very fortunate to, have been on other podcast shows and do interviews and share my story, I don't think I'm going to share as much as I have on those shows the way that I'm going to do in our conversation today, because I have Nani with me, and Nani has been a part of my journey for the majority of this podcast show. And she has seen and heard a lot of the things that have happened behind the scenes. And there is a lot that goes on behind the show. I mean, I've always kind of been this way where I get a lot of satisfaction in interviewing other people, even before I started podcasting. Like I always just wanted to genuinely get to know people. But I think lately I've been doing it more so on purpose to not deal with my own personal issues. So I figured this is a great opportunity for us to, for you all to come here and hang out with us for a little bit, only exclusive here on Tsismis with Jen and Nani, to learn more about us on a deeper level. But I really don't know how I want to approach this, Nani. So I need your help.
Yeah.
So any initial thoughts from you, and the fact that we're going to start these series of us just kind of talking and sharing what's going on in our lives and behind the scenes of the TFAW Project.
Yeah. Well, just to give a little bit of context, Jen and I are not just colleagues that work together on this podcast and the media projects that we work on that have kind of spun off in result of the TFAW project. We also have like a personal relationship. I call her Ate for a reason, and I'm really appreciative to have her to either text or call or ping on Slack, however we communicate these days, when I need to vent or when I need to talk, or vice versa, for her to call me in those moments where she needs someone to lean on for support. Also, I'm really, really grateful for that and just the relationship that we have. And I think that a lot of you guys have been curious of what that kind of looks like behind the scenes when we're not in our non-productive time together, what our relationship looks like. And so as she kind of touched on over the last year, well, really 2 years since, I joined her on the TFAW project, she's obviously been through a lot. We all have, it was a fucking pandemic. So for starters, not that that's what is going to be the basis of our conversation today, but a lot has happened and there have been a lot of those private moments that we've shared together, and wanted to highlight some of those like reoccurring themes that keep coming up in Jen's life for you, our audience, and our community, because we think that these are things that a lot of people experience in the Pinay community specifically. And just because we have created this kind of safe haven for ourselves here to have those conversations openly and candidly and unpack kind of the impact of our interactions with other people who, whether they're our friends or our family or people we went to school with, work with, etc., just people that have had kind of a negative impact on us. We have to also acknowledge that that is the world, that we live in. And that is kind of the dynamic that our culture thrives on. And as much as we're normalizing that with our podcast and with the work that we do, it still very much is alive and exists. And so we do have to deal with it from time to time. And I think that spending so much time here in this space where it does feel safe to talk about those things and just be, real, we also have to learn how to meet people where they're at. And we can't hold everyone to that same expectation, especially if they are not part of the TFAW community. So at least I hope that's a good overview.
Yeah. I definitely had, again, this is a very non-agenda conversation, just one objective in mind. And I just appreciate everything that you shared. And we are very familiar with the crab mentality. We're familiar with competition, with comparison. We're familiar with all the negative aspects of being in this community, the, lack of boundaries that we give each other, the almost abusive way that people use family to say, we're family. But, that also means I can abuse you in certain ways, whether it's verbal, physical, financial, economical, et cetera. We are aware of all of that. And, I myself, I have experienced, just as many of us have, many issues within the community, such as being bullied and, even just abuse within my own family. But the reason why we can do the show and continue to do the show 100 plus episodes later, even creating this spinoff, Tsismis with Jen and Nani, is because I realized that this is never going to go away. I will never not be Filipino, even if I deny it, even if I am in, let's say, a white dominated community, people will always ask me, where am I from? No, really, where am I from? And people will expect for me to speak about my culture. And so, there's no running away from who I am. So I might as well lean into this and lean into the good, the bad, the ugly of our community. All right, and there you have it. A little teaser for you for Tsismis with Jen and Nani, which you can have access to when you become a member on biasboba.com. Remember, there's a difference between just buying us 1 cup of boba or 2 or 3 or 20. We actually had someone support us with 20 cups of boba, so thank you to our anonymous supportive listener. But when you become a member on biasboba.com, remember that's a monthly commitment. You could also opt in to the annual membership, which would save you 1 month of supporting us. So you get a 1 month off for supporting us annually. But either way, whether you become a monthly supporter or an annual supporter, you will have access to our private podcast show, Tsismis with Jen and Nani. I want to thank you all so much for having been part of our journey. It's so crazy to actually reflect on this out loud and, realize that the majority of our show had been produced during the pandemic. If you catch us at episode 130, where we wrap up season 3, you'll hear Nani and I do a deep reflection of, Filipino American History Month, which has already passed at the time that I'm recording this, but also just our overall reflections of what it has been like to be on this journey with all of you doing this podcast show during the pandemic. And that's it. I think that's all I have to share today. Thank you all again so much for your support. Once again, if you happen to catch up to all of our episodes up to episode 130 and you miss us and you want to dive in deeper, remember you can support us and join us. We actually just started a book club on biasboba.com. So once again, if you want to have access to Tsismis with Jen and Nani and you want to participate in our book club, the book that we're currently reading right now is Little Manila is in the Heart. So go ahead and check that out wherever you purchase your books. And we'd love to have you join us. I think our first session to talk about it is going to be sometime toward the end of November. If you're not plugged into our newsletter, make sure you subscribe, check out the show notes of this episode so that you can get an update as to when we're having that book discussion of Little Manila is in the Heart. And that's it. I think that's all the updates I have to share. I want to thank you all so much again. I can't thank you enough. This is why I'm saying thank you so much, because I really am grateful. We wouldn't be doing this show if it wasn't for you, if it wasn't for your messages, your text messages, your DMs on Instagram, your emails, your reshares, when you tag us in things, when you give us a shout out when other people are trying to promote other Filipino podcast shows and they forgot to tag us. Thank you all so much. We couldn't be any more grateful. I personally just want to say I love you all. And you are the reason why I keep podcasting and why I keep producing. And like I said, Nani and I, at the time of this recording, we are off season now. So this is sort of why I'm working on this episode now. But you know how to get a hold of us. You can check out our show notes on how to contact us. And that's it. Other than that, love you all. Thank you so much for listening. And we hope to see you participating in our book club on biasboba.com or, getting a deeper dive into the episode that used to be here, episode 99, when you listen to our private podcast show, Tsismis with Jen and Nani. All right, everyone. Take care for now. Bye.